We already signed everything over to your brother. My father said it while standing in the doorway of the living room, like he was announcing what we'd have for dinner. The house smelled like coffee and the lemon cleaner my mother always used on Sundays. My childhood house. I was still holding my phone mid-text to a friend when his words landed. The house. The land. The savings account, my mother added quickly from the couch. It was the most logical choice, sweetheart. Across the room, my elder brother leaned back in my father's recliner, arms folded across his chest, watching my face change. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look guilty. He looked satisfied. My chest tightened so fast it hurt. I tried to breathe normally but couldn't. My mouth opened. No sound came out. I wasn't invited into the decision. I wasn't asked my opinion. I wasn't even warned. I was informed after everything was finished. After the papers were signed. After the lawyers reviewed it. After my brother already knew. They'd excluded me completely. And they expected me to just accept it. You're serious? I finally managed to ask. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. Distant. My mother smiled nervously, wringing her hands together. Isabella, don't take it personally. You know how these things work. Don't take it personally. My brother let out a quiet laugh from the recliner. Not loud. Just enough for me to hear. You're good at handling things on your own, sis. You'll be fine. That was when the anger hit me. Sharp, clean, and absolute. They weren't just cutting me out of the inheritance. They were confident I'd accept it without a fight. They thought I'd smile and nod and move on because that's what I always did. The responsible one. The one who never complained. The one who fixed things quietly. My father shifted his weight in the doorway. We thought you'd understand. Your brother has a family to think about. I had been helping this family for years. And this was my reward. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed with them. Not because I understood. But because I needed a moment to breathe. To think. To not scream. Okay, I said softly. The tension in the room disappeared instantly. My parents visibly relaxed. My mother's shoulders dropped. My father smiled a little. My brother looked confused for just a second, like he'd expected more of a fight. They mistook my calm for compliance. They thought I was agreeing to be erased. I picked up my purse from the side table, walked past the family photos hanging on the wall, photos where I was always slightly out of frame, and left the house without another word. Behind me, conversation resumed almost immediately. I could hear my brother's voice, casual and light, talking about renovation plans. That hurt more than anything they'd said to my face. I wasn't even worth a moment of reflection. I was already forgotten. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes before starting the engine. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight. But my mind was clear. That was the moment my parents signed everything over to my elder brother. The house where I grew up. The land my grandparents bought. The savings account I'd helped protect during the hardest years. What they didn't know was that the court already had something to say about it. What they didn't remember was a document I'd filed 5 years ago. A document they'd ignored. A document they'd told me not to worry about. A document that was about to change everything. I pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at the porch where I used to sit with my grandmother. Not at the window where my mother stood watching me leave. I had work to do. My name is Isabella Martinez. I'm a white American woman, 36 years old, and for most of my life, I was the responsible one in my family. The one who stayed close when my brother moved 3 states away for college and never really came back. The one who helped when things got hard. The one who handled emergencies without being asked. I was the daughter who showed up. Who organized. Who remembered birthdays and made phone calls and checked in every week. And apparently, I was the one who was never meant to inherit anything. My brother's name is Vincent. He's 4 years older than me, 40 now, married with 2 kids. He's charming when he wants to be. He's always had big plans and big ideas. And he's always been my parents' favorite. I learned to accept that a long time ago. Or I thought I had. Growing up, my brother was praised for his potential. I was praised for being reliable. When he failed a class, it was boys being boys, or he'll figure it out. When I got straight A's, it was, well, that's what we expected from you. When he forgot my birthday, it was fine. When I forgot his, I didn't hear the end of it for months. I learned early that love in my family wasn't loud or obvious. It was conditional. It was based on what you could do for them, not who you were. My brother got the benefit of the doubt. I got the responsibility. He got second chances. I got higher expectations. He got freedom. Got guilt trips. For years, I told myself it didn't matter. That I was strong enough to handle it. That being the reliable one was a good thing. But deep down, I always wondered if they loved him more. And now I had my answer. 5 years earlier, everything fell apart. My father's health failed suddenly. He had a heart attack, spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and came home with a stack of medical bills that made my mother cry at the kitchen table. The bills piled up fast. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough. The mortgage was behind. The property taxes were overdue. The house was at risk. My brother was living 2 states away with his own problems. He sent a card. He didn't send money. My mother called me on a Tuesday night, her voice shaking. Isabella, we need help. Your father won't ask, but I'm asking. Can you help us with the paperwork? You're better at this stuff than we are. She handed me a thick folder the next day. Legal documents, wills, notices, everything was a mess. I didn't just help them. I protected them. I spent weeks sorting through everything, making calls, filing extensions, and figuring out what could be saved. One document in that folder stood out. It was a court-filed protection tied to inheritance and asset transfer. It outlined rules about how property could be passed down, especially in cases where one child provided significant financial or caretaking support. It protected against unfair distribution, against cutting someone out without cause. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood it. Then I explained it to my parents at the kitchen table. Slowly, carefully. My father waved his hand dismissively. That's just legal language, honey. Nothing to worry about. My mother nodded in agreement. We're not planning to do anything complicated. Don't stress about it. But I couldn't let it go. Something in my gut told me it mattered. So I made sure the document was properly filed with the county court. I made copies, kept records. I didn't tell them I was doing it because I knew they'd tell me not to bother. Just in case, I told myself. Just in case something goes wrong. After the signing, my brother moved fast. Within a week, he was already making changes. New furniture arrived at the house. He talked about renovation plans, about knocking down walls and updating the kitchen. He started referring to the house as mine in every conversation. My parents didn't stop him. They encouraged it. It's so nice to see Vincent taking charge, my mother said when I called to check in. He's really stepping up. No one asked how I was doing. No one checked if I was okay. No one seemed to remember that I'd spent 5 years helping them stay afloat while my brother sent birthday cards from a distance. I waited for someone to acknowledge what had happened, to at least say they were sorry, to explain why I didn't matter. But the call never came. 2 weeks after the signing, I finally asked for clarity. I called my mother on a Sunday afternoon. I kept my voice calm and even. Can we talk about the inheritance decision? She sighed loudly on the other end of the line. Isabella, it's already done. The papers are signed. Please don't turn this into drama. Drama. That word hit me like a slap. I wasn't being dramatic. I was asking for basic respect. I just want to understand why I wasn't included in the conversation, I said carefully. Because there was nothing to discuss, she replied. Your father and I made the decision we thought was best. Vincent needs the help more than you do. You've always been independent. Independent. Another word that meant I didn't deserve anything. I hung up soon after. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from clarity. They'd made their choice. Now I'd make mine. I didn't argue with them after that call. Instead, I scheduled a consultation with an attorney. A woman named Patricia Flores who specialized in estate disputes and inheritance law. I placed the ignored court file on her desk during our first meeting and watched her expression change as she read through it. Her eyebrows lifted. She leaned forward. She made notes. "They transferred the assets without acknowledging this court protection?" she asked, looking up at me. "Yes," I said simply. She nodded once, her jaw tight. "Then they made a legal mistake. A significant one." She explained that the document I'd filed 5 years ago created protections that couldn't be ignored. That because I'd provided documented financial and personal support during a crisis, the court had rules about fair distribution. "This changes everything," Patricia said. "Do you want to move forward?" Took a breath. "Yes, I do." My brother tried to leverage the house for a business loan. He had big plans. He wanted to start a consulting company. He needed capital. He figured the house was worth enough to secure a serious loan, and since it was now in his name, it would be easy. He told everyone about his plans. He bragged at family dinners about how smart his strategy was. He even hinted that he might sell the house eventually and buy something bigger. My parents didn't question him. They trusted him. They believed in his potential. He never bothered reading the fine print on the property transfer. He never thought he needed to. He assumed everything was simple and clean. He was wrong. When he applied for the loan, the bank started reviewing the property records. They found complications, flags in the system, discrepancies. The loan officer called him with questions. Lots of them. The loan froze. Paperwork delays. Requests for additional documentation. Clarifications needed from the county courthouse. Everything stalled. My brother called me 3 days later. His voice tight with frustration. "Hey, you don't know anything about some court thing tied to the house, do you?" I paused for just a moment. Long enough to let him wonder. "I'm sure it's nothing," I said calmly. "Probably just standard procedures." He wasn't convinced. "It's holding up everything. The bank won't move forward until it's cleared up." "That sounds frustrating," I said. And I meant it. I knew exactly how frustrating it was about to get for him. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control. For once, I wasn't reacting to their decisions. I wasn't scrambling to fix their problems. I was 3 steps ahead. A court notice arrived at my parents' house a week later. It came in a thick envelope with an official county seal. My mother saw it on the kitchen counter and assumed it was junk mail. My father glanced at it and set it aside. They didn't open it for 3 days. When they finally did, the words didn't make sense to them at first. Legal terminology. References to filings from 5 years ago. Notifications about asset disputes and required hearings. They called Vincent immediately. He came over that night, and the 3 of them sat at the kitchen table trying to figure out what was happening. They assumed it was a mistake. Some bureaucratic error. They thought authority only went one way, and they held all of it. They didn't realize the system had already started working against them. That the document I'd filed years ago was now active. That their confidence had blinded them. My brother's confidence began to crack. His voice grew sharper on phone calls. His texts became shorter, more clipped. He started blaming the bank, the county office, the lawyers, anyone he could think of. He called my parents constantly, asking if they'd heard anything. Demanding they fix it. Getting angry when they couldn't. "This doesn't make sense," he kept saying. Everything was finalized. Everything was legal. But legal doesn't always mean fair. And the court was starting to notice the difference. My father tried calling in favors with old friends who knew people in the system. My mother tried to smooth things over with charm and polite phone calls. Nothing worked. The case was already in motion. The timeline was set. The review had begun. And slowly, my brother started to realize he might not be untouchable after all. Vincent finally called me directly. His tone was different this time. less confident, almost desperate. Isabella, I need to ask you something, he said. Did you file some kind of court document about the house years ago? I didn't lie. Yes, I did. Silence on the other end. Why? He asked, his voice rising. Why would you do that? Because I was protecting the family, I said calmly. The same way I always have. He exhaled sharply. You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that Mom and Dad chose me. I didn't respond right away. I let his words hang in the air. I'm not jealous, Vincent, I finally said. I'm just not invisible anymore. He hung up. Truth doesn't need defense. Just needs time. The court officially stepped in 2 weeks later. The asset transfer was flagged for review. Ownership was frozen pending a hearing. All plans involving the property were put on hold indefinitely. What my parents thought was finished, signed, and final was suddenly under legal scrutiny. The court appointed a mediator to review the circumstances. They requested documentation of my support during the crisis years. Bank records, receipts, emails, everything I'd quietly saved. I provided it all. The mediator's report was clear. I had contributed significantly to preserving the family's assets during a critical time. The transfer to Vincent alone, without any consideration for my role, violated the protections I'd filed. The law was on my side. My family had ignored the rules. Now the rules were ignoring them. My parents called me late on a Thursday night. I was reading a book when my phone lit up with my mother's name. I considered not answering, but I was curious. Hello, I said. Isabella. My mother's voice was tight, almost a whisper. What's happening? We just got another letter from the court. They're saying the transfer might be reversed. I set my book down. The document you ignored 5 years ago is being enforced. Silence. What document? My father asked in the background. The one I tried to explain to you, I said evenly. The one you told me not to worry about. My mother's breath caught. You knew this would happen. I knew it could, I replied. I tried to warn you. You didn't listen. More silence. I could hear papers rustling. They were finally reading it. Every line, every condition, every consequence. We didn't mean, my mother started. Yes, you did, I interrupted gently. You meant exactly what you. For the first time they actually read the document. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd made their decision without me, and went through every word. I knew because my mother called me the next day, her voice small. We didn't understand what this meant, she said. I explained it to you, I reminded her. You chose not to listen. We thought. She trailed off. You thought I'd just accept being erased, I finished for her. You thought I wouldn't fight back. She didn't deny it. My father got on the line. Isabella, this is tearing the family apart. No, Dad, I said calmly. You tore it apart when you signed everything over to Vincent without even telling me. I'm just making sure the court knows about it. I could hear regret settling into their voices. But regret isn't the same as change. And apologies don't undo legal documents. My brother lost control of the property 2 months later. The court ruled that the transfer had been made improperly. That my documented contributions during the crisis years entitled me to fair consideration. That excluding me entirely violated the protections I'd filed. The original transfer was voided. Vincent's business loan collapsed. His renovation plans disappeared. His confidence shattered. The house went into a trust pending final distribution decisions. My brother walked away with nothing but anger and the consequences of his arrogance. The irony was exact. He'd been so sure of his position, so confident that being the favorite meant being untouchable, that he never considered he might be wrong. My parents had enabled that confidence. They'd fed it. And now all 3 of them were facing the reality that preference doesn't override law. I didn't celebrate. I just felt relief. The kind that comes from being seen. From being heard. From mattering. My parents tried to reach out after the ruling. They called. They texted. They sent emails asking if we could talk, if we could work this out, if we could fix things. My mother left a voicemail. Isabella, we made a mistake. We see that now. Can we please sit down and discuss this like a family? I listened to the message 3 times. Then I called her back. We met at a coffee shop, Neutral Ground, a week later. My father looked older. My mother looked tired. They sat across from me with nervous expressions. We're sorry, my father said. He nodded. I hear that. We didn't realize what we were doing to you, my mother added. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You knew. You just didn't think it mattered. They didn't argue. They couldn't. Understanding doesn't require reconciliation. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. The court restructured the estate distribution. After months of hearings and reviews, a final plan was put in place. I received a fair share. Not everything. Not revenge. Just fairness. My brother received less than he'd planned. My parents retained some control, but with conditions attached. Everyone signed the new agreement. This time with lawyers present. This time with everything documented properly. Vincent didn't speak to me at the final meeting. He sat across the table, jaw tight, and signed his name without looking up. My parents tried to smooth things over. This is good for everyone, my mother said weakly. But it wasn't good for everyone. It was just fair. And fairness felt like a loss to people who'd always had more. The whole process had taken nearly 6 months. 6 months of legal battles and family tension and sleepless nights. But I'd won. Not by being cruel. Just by refusing to be erased. After everything was finalized, my parents expected me to move back into the picture. To come to family dinners. To call every week like I used to. To pretend nothing had happened. My mother called 2 weeks after the final signatures. We're having Sunday dinner. Will you come? I considered it. I really did. No, I said. I don't think so. Isabella, we can't keep living like this, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. You're right, I agreed. We can't. That's why I'm choosing something different. She didn't know what to say to that. Reconciliation requires both sides wanting to change. They wanted me to go back to being convenient. I wanted to move forward into something healthier. Those 2 things weren't compatible. I built a new life over the following year. A life where I wasn't tolerated, I was valued. Where my contributions mattered. Where I wasn't the backup plan or the emergency contact. I made new friends. I traveled. I took up hobbies I'd put off for years because I was always too busy helping everyone else. I started saying no without guilt. I stopped answering calls that felt like obligations. I protected my peace the same way I'd once protected my family's assets. My brother never apologized. My parents reached out occasionally, but always with expectations attached. Kept my distance. It wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. Some people think forgiveness means going back. But sometimes forgiveness means going forward. Alone if necessary. And I'd never been afraid of being alone. I'd been alone in that family for years. The house still exists on Maple Street. My parents still live there. My brother visits sometimes, though less than he used to. I drive past it occasionally when I'm in town visiting friends. I see the porch where my grandmother used to sit. The window where I used to watch for my father to come home from work. But I don't live there anymore. I don't need to. That house represented everything I was supposed to want. Family, belonging, roots. But it never gave me the one thing I actually needed, to be seen. The court case wasn't about the house. It was never really about money or property or inheritance. It was about being erased by the people who were supposed to love me most. And refusing to accept it. I won that case. But more importantly, I won myself back. And for the first time in my life, that feels like winning.